Hey, my name is TJ. I'm here hosting the Recovery Matters podcast with our guest, Matt.
Hi, everybody. Matt Check here from Cincinnati, Ohio today.
That's awesome. Are you a Bengals fan?
Yes, but via my wife and her family, the only thing I knew about Cincinnati before I met my wife was Pete Rose, because I'm from Philadelphia.
Yep.
And the first 2 years that we dated, we were, in the championship and then the Super Bowl. And I'm like, this is amazing. And my wife was like, it's not always like this, actually. So
That's pretty cool. So you're originally from Philadelphia?
yeah. And then I lived in New York for almost 20 years, most of my adult life. And
Okay.
then I moved here to Cincinnati in 2023 with my wife. Yeah.
Okay. What was life like for you growing up?
So I'm from a middle upper class Jewish family from the suburbs of Philadelphia. But I started drinking very early on. We used to vacation in Aruba when I was a kid. And we were able to buy alcohol before 18. And we'd bring the bottles down to the beach and hang out and stuff. And sometimes I was out of control. Sometimes I wasn't. It's funny because I say that on one hand, and on the other, in high school, I was a good kid. I got my work done.
Yep.
And I played sports. I was in plays and stuff. And we were good kids. We didn't overdo it. And there were parties, and we would get people to buy us booze or cigarettes. We'd smoke weed when we went to concerts and stuff. But I didn't get out of control or get into trouble. And I got my work done. It was not until college, and I'm talking like right away. Like
Yep.
the first week I got to college, I'll never forget. I went to this party. I could tell right away that I drank differently than other people. In college, the weekend started on Wednesdays. I was always drunk. I was always hungover. I was always hearing about what had happened.
Yep.
So those are the early years of how it kind of was. And then the progressiveness really took over. Once I was like a working adult, 27, 28, 29, I finished graduate school. I was living in New York. A lot of whiskey by myself at night after work, working, blacking out, waking up, getting into situations. I have this book coming out. So a lot of the book takes place in these years where I was like in my late 20s, and I started to kind of see how I was acting around dealing with life and stress and things not working out and mixing the alcohol into it. I really lived two lives. Like I was a blackout drunk. Everybody has a ridiculous story about like the life that they lived while they drank, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it just sounds, and like you're like, oh my God, he was a lawyer. Oh my God, he's a doctor. Oh my God, he's a construction worker. Oh my God, he's a teacher. Oh my God, he's a social worker and he's an alcoholic, right? Well,
Yep.
I ran programs for toddlers. So I would play like the wheels on the bus go round and round, you know, hung over, not knowing how like the night ended.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is my fucking life. Like, really? Like this is what it's come to, right? And I'll never forget this. The night that I realized I really needed to change my life, I was 33.
Okay.
I was on this second or third date with this woman who I was really excited. And we came back to my place, and I was like, we were drinking, and all of a sudden, like it was morning, right? And I wake up and I'm on the floor of my apartment. I'm a musician also, by the way. I wrote a song about this part of my life that's called "Old Wooden Floor." It's on my record from 2022. I
Okay.
wanted to write a song. I wanted to write a song about. I've always shied away from writing about this part of my life, but I was like, I need to write a song about something related to my alcoholism. So the song is called "Old Wooden Floor" because it's like I woke up on this floor.
Yep.
And it really was like a country song. So I wrote a country song about it. Like I woke up, there was a bottle of empty whiskey next to my head.
Yep.
It was a hot day. It was July. And like I had no idea how this woman went home. Absolutely no clue. Like totally erased from my memory. And like I told you, it was like a Friday morning. I had to strap on my guitar with this raging hangover and play to this room full of babies. I'm like, what happened? Where is this woman? What happened? Like afraid I've done like the worst of the worst of the worst things, right? And I cried in my office that day. I was like, I don't know what the hell happened, right? A couple of days later, I texted her and I said in the text, I just need to know you're okay. Get back to me. And it was so embarrassing. And she texted me back and she said, you didn't do anything wrong, but you said a lot of really stupid things,
Okay.
and you need help. And I have no idea what she said, what I said. I have no clue what I said to her, and I drank for another month.
Okay.
And I went to Nantucket to a friend's house to hang out for a week and play some music and write. Like, I'm writing this book. So like I was like, this is before I even worked on this book. But I was writing, and I told myself, I said, this is it. Like, this is the last weekend that I'm going to drink. And it really was. Like, I drank all weekend. I flew home to New York. The last night of my drinking, I did the most ridiculous thing. Um, I ordered Chinese food. I got a bottle of wine, and I watched this movie about alcoholics from the 1960s. It's called The Days of Wine and Roses. It's a really famous, it's a really famous book about AA, if you've
Yep.
heard of it. Oh, okay, so you do know.
Yes.
And I woke up the next morning, and that was the last day I drank. It was August 14th, 2014.
Okay.
I
Wow.
walked into a meeting. I haven't looked back, and that began my life of recovery was then. And so I'll God willing, one day at a time, I'll have 11 years in August.
Dude, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Thanks.
got 9 years in August.
Congrats.
Yeah,
That's
thank you.
amazing. What's your date?
August 9th, 2016.
Congratulations. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, so we're
That's
right
great.
there. I like being sober in the summer because I remember. So springtime is weird because you remember those feelings of like angst and loneliness and all that coming up, and like knowing that like this whole thing is going to come to a head soon, right?
Totally. Yeah,
And then you get to summer and you get to celebrate your recovery day, and like, you get to like be a part of, and it's like, wow, like this is kind of like a new life, you know?
definitely.
What was your
Yeah.
first like couple of weeks, month of recovery like for you?
I'd walk home and I'd look at that liquor store that I'd always like buy a bottle of wine at or whiskey.
Yep.
I was like, not tonight. And I was a little agitated, I guess. I was a little, like maybe restless, so to speak.
Hmm.
But then I actually got a lot of I felt really motivated. I'll tell you what happened. I felt really motivated by getting a really good night's sleep
Okay.
and like waking up not out of a blackout, not feeling guilt, not feeling shame. And that really got me over the hump the first month, actually. It was like having a really cold drink of water on a hot day when you're thirsty.
Yes.
And I just wanted more and more and more of it.
Yep.
Right. And then this really powerful thing happened in the first or second month. I don't know which it was, but I went to like my first men's meeting, which I thought was really, I didn't want to do it. I'm like, this is weird. A bunch of dudes talking about their feelings. I thought it was like, I didn't want to do it. And it was such a powerful meeting. And then a couple of the guys invited me out for dinner at this diner afterwards on Third Avenue in Manhattan. And I'll tell you the funny thing about this diner was like I used to go to this diner, like I went to a fucking diner to get a burger, and the waiter knew to always bring me a glass of wine at a diner. Like, who drinks at a diner by himself? Well, I did, right? So we go to this diner where the waiter knows me. I sit down with these guys, and he comes over and he kind of whispered in my ears, like, you don't have to be with them. He knew that they were AA people, right?
Yep.
And I was like, it's really okay. Like, I'm with them tonight. And he's like, okay, whatever. And anyway, so my point is that night, I had never felt so safe in my adult life. It was a Friday night. I'm in this diner with a bunch of guys. We're having burgers and cups of coffee. We're laughing so hard at the stupidest things, and
Hmm.
there's no drink to be found. And I was like, oh my God, I'm having fun.
Yep. You feel
I'm not worried
complete.
about, I felt complete. I'm not, yeah, that's a great way of put, I'm not worried about how the night's going to end.
Hmm.
I'm not looking at women wondering like who I'm going to try to pick up, like I was just about spending time with people and being sober. And that felt amazing. So I really was able to rediscover the parts of who I am as a person without the alcohol, right, in the early days. So it really, little by little, it sustained myself. But then life started getting lifey. Dealing with life on life's terms and the emotional sobriety piece is something I've always struggled with. I've just gone through cycles, I'll be honest.
Of
I
course.
just yeah. So that's where I'm at 11 years into it. But I've had the greatest and the worst times of my life in sobriety. When I was in my mid 30s, I'm 44. So in my mid 30s, I would say I was kind of at the height of my life and my career. And I met this woman, and we fell in love, and we had great jobs in New York. We were living this great, New York life, you know, and we just decided we're like, let's save a couple of bucks. Let's just quit our jobs and go to India. And she wasn't she's not an alcoholic, so it wasn't an alcoholic decision on her part, but it was just a very like storybook. Like there we were sitting in some like restaurant in Manhattan. We're like, let's just fucking do it.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Right. So we did it. We quit our jobs. We like, I got somebody to sublet my apartment. And we literally like at 36 years old, after like having a job and paying taxes and living like a life as I'm teaching English in this monastery in northern India
Wow.
to kids. And then we traveled after that, and I went to a couple of meetings, but not many. This story isn't necessarily about me not going to meetings in India, but we, on the trip, we really clashed, we grew apart, and we broke up in Vietnam.
Phew.
And I thought I was gonna ask her to marry me, right?
Mhm.
So here I am on the other side of the world. I break up with, my girlfriend at the time, and we had to be kind of mature about it because we were so far from home. So we finished up that part of the trip and we got to Europe, and she stayed in Spain, and I flew to my parents' house, and my parents were living in West Palm Beach at the time. So I went down to Florida because I couldn't get back into my apartment yet in New York. And I got to my parents' house. The next day I went right to a meeting at a clubhouse.
Okay.
You know, I got my hand up and I said, my name is Matt, I'm an alcoholic. Like, I just broke up with my girlfriend in Vietnam. We quit our jobs and went there. I have no job. I have to go home to Manhattan next week. I got to look for another job, but I'm not going to drink, you know, and like nobody could look at me and really empathize because everybody was probably like, who is this fucking guy?
Yeah.
Like, who gets to quit their job and just go gallivant, But I
Yes.
did. That's what I did. That's my story. It really is my truth.
Yep.
And I didn't drink.
That's awesome, dude.
In a certain way, I really did. My life really did for a second really fell apart.
Yep.
And so that really happened. With that whole thing I just told you, I didn't drink through it.
Hmm. What was it like for you finding recovery within the Jewish community and everything like that? Because I haven't really talked to very many people in recovery that are specifically Jewish. I would love to hear more, learn more about that. What's that like?
I had a very intense Jewish upbringing because I went to a Jewish school because it was in my neighborhood.
Yep.
So I actually had an Orthodox bar mitzvah.
Wow.
Um, I went to seminary for graduate school. I have a degree in Jewish education. So I really do like live like a certain life as a Jewish educator. Our existence is often based on interpreting the Hebrew Bible and what does it mean,
Hmm.
right? So reading from the big book and interpreting it really resonated with me. Just kind of like looking for your own experience in the text. I loved that. I loved that aspect of AA and just really reading the stories, reading the foundational stories and just like looking for my story in it and like hearing everybody's shared experience in life
Hmm.
with regard to the big book and the 12 and 12. You know, it really helped me see that I was an alcoholic and couldn't drink ever again
Yep.
or shouldn't drink ever again. Hopefully I won't. Within the Jewish community, I say writ large, there's this, stereotype or joke that there are no Jewish alcoholics. Right. And so, and I really hadn't known any Jewish alcoholics in recovery before I got sober.
Yep.
And there's a lot of alcohol in Jewish ritual. In fact, when you sanctify things in Judaism, it's with wine. So there's always wine. Friday night, Saturday night, Passover, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, always wine.
Hmm.
And there is a drinking culture in Judaism too. There's a holiday called Purim. It's like somewhere between Mardi Gras and Halloween for
Okay.
for Ju- for us. And it's a commandment to get drunk. We say you're supposed to get so drunk that you curse the good guy and you bless the bad guy. That's how drunk you're supposed to get. And then there's even this saying I learned in going in college. Jewish students can go to two places usually to kind of celebrate being Jewish. One's called the Chabad House, which is an Orthodox organization, and the other is called Hillel.
Okay.
I once and one of them, they didn't encourage us to get drunk, but they said, when you drink, your spirit is elevated, right? So I kind of like, I had this seed was planted inside of me that it was okay to drink and to get drunk,
Hmm.
right? That it brings out the spiritual side of you. And you know what? For some people that may be true, but not for me.
Hmm.
It brought out the opposite of spiritual inside of me eventually,
Hmm.
right? Which is why I'm sober now. And by the way, there are like Jewish recovery programs and gurus now. It's really interesting. There's an organization based out of Los Angeles called Beit Teshuvah. Teshuvah means to return or to repent. They have a recovery program. It's based on Jewish spirituality, and there's a couple of rabbis that I've heard speak a little bit about their recovery.
That's
So
cool.
it's cool. It's out there, but I'll be honest. Um, I love AA, and this is you know what? I don't want to forget to say this actually. AA and the spirituality that I have found in the program has kind of replaced the religious part of my Judaism. I kind of ceased being an observer. I kind of ceased looking for God in Judaism when I found AA. It sounds almost
Hmm.
heretical, right? I see myself as a cultural Jew. I come from a civilization, and I feel like it's important for me to pass that on. But with regard to my Judaism, with regard to my spirituality, it's totally just in AA now.
One thing too
You
you
know,
mentioned that was like really cool that I want you to elaborate on is you have a book coming out, huh?
it's about my young adult life.
Okay.
It's about being a musician and living in New York and looking for, a girlfriend, like a perfect woman. And
Yeah.
it's also about my Judaism and just trying to, have a job and work and be a musician. It's all like Matt Check as an early adult. One of the motifs in the book so an interesting thing about the book that I think for us, for non-civilians, right,
Yeah.
is I actually started writing it before I got sober, which is really crazy to me. So early
Wow.
drafts of the book, I was already writing about how I drank while I was drinking, looking at myself and my life, maybe, like not reflective, not aware, maybe a little bit in denial, but still trying to write about it, right? And then I got sober and I was able to really kind of dig into the way that I lived my life when I drank, right?
Hmm.
And so now, it's basically 11 years after writing the book. One of those salient motifs in the book is like these scenes where I'm drinking a lot, or I want to get drunk because I'm really resentful about a situation, or I'm really angry, or something's not working out, or I'm really excited, right? So the some of the AA stuff that really is relatable to somebody in recovery, it's preserved in the book. It's pretty cool.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm kind of proud of it because now I can look at it in a way where I can kind of laugh at it. At the time, it was not funny, right?
Yes.
Some of these ridiculous situations I would put myself in, right, and other people.
So when does it
Yeah.
come out?
Well, it's coming out this week. It's called
Nice.
What Would Philip Roth Do? Philip Roth is my favorite writer.
It'll be available on Amazon and everything like that?
It will. It'll be on my website where my music is also my music, MatthewCheckMusic.com. It's got all my records, some YouTube videos, some interviews about like my songwriting and stuff. And there'll be a link to the book when it comes out on there as well. So it's been really fun writing the book because I think of myself as when I'm not in my day job, I am a musician. I've got a lot of records that are out. So the book allowed me to kind of write about the origin story of myself as a musician and a songwriter, which is really kind of fun to write also. And so the drinking goes hand in hand with that, like I told you.
Yep. Thank you for coming on today, dude. It was awesome to have you and awesome to hear your story. And like, I love learning about people. I think it's a big part of recovery is like sharing experience and seeing how, like, though we live different lives, how like I can relate to somebody and make that connection and share our common bond of recovery, right?
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having this as a platform. And I live one day at a time. If my story resonates with anybody and you want to reach out, feel free to do so. Like I also try to live in service and I try to live that life. So I just wanted to thank you for having such a cool podcast. So I can I listen to it in the car now. When I don't have time to go to a meeting, I throw it on
Perfect.
and listen to a story or two. So thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.